In the dry valleys of northern Iraq, a cave lies silent in the dust of ages. The wind moves through its stone corridors like the whisper of time itself. Long ago, tens of thousands of years before our age, a man fell here and his bones were swallowed by the earth. Millennia passed. Then, beneath the flicker of an archaeologist's torch, he was found again, not just as a skeleton, but as a question that science still struggles to answer. That question bears the name Shanidar 5. When his skull first emerged from the soil, it looked both familiar and foreign. The scientists who uncovered it paused in wonder. Was this the face of a Neanderthal, or the face of one of us, an early modern human? For more than 60 years, that question has remained unresolved. Shanidar 5 stands on the thin line between two worlds, one belonging to the ancient Neanderthals, the other to Homo sapiens, our own kind. Since its discovery in 1960, this fossil has ignited fierce debates. Some researchers call him a late, slightly unusual Neanderthal. Others believe he may be the first tangible proof of interbreeding, a hybrid born in a time when two human species met. Every ridge of bone, every curve of the skull seems to hold a fragment of that mystery. Today, we'll travel back through time, from the silent depths of Shanidar Cave to the bright laboratories where modern science deciphers the secrets of human evolution. Because this is not merely the story of an ancient skull, it's the story of us and of the fragile boundary that separates humanity from its own past. High in the rugged mountains of Kurdistan, in the remote north of Iraq, lies a narrow opening carved into limestone. It is a place where light fades into shadow, and the air carries the scent of dust and deep time. In the year 1960, an American archaeologist named Ralph Selecki led his team up those steep slopes to that very cave. Their goal was simple: to search for traces of early humans. What they uncovered instead would change the story of humanity itself. Under the dim glow of lanterns, the first bones began to appear fragile, yellowed fragments resting in the cold soil. Day after day, the team brushed away layers of sediment until the outline of a human skeleton took form. It belonged to an adult male somewhere between 35 and 50 years old. His bones told a story, written not in words but in scars. A small wound, just 5 millimeters across, marked his forehead, healed long before death. It was the kind of injury that could have killed him, yet it hadn't. Someone had cared for him, someone had helped him heal. That tiny mark on his skull revealed something profound, that even in a harsh Ice Age world, compassion already existed. Among Neanderthals, survival was never just about strength, it was about connection. The scientists named him Shanidar 5 after the cave where he was found. His remains joined a remarkable group of individuals discovered in the same cavern: men, women, even children, some with missing limbs, others who had lived long after devastating injuries. Together, they painted a picture of a community that looked after its own. The layers of earth surrounding him dated to somewhere between 70,000 and 40,000 years ago, a period when the first Homo sapiens were beginning to move northward into the Near East. This overlap in time and geography made Shanidar Cave a meeting ground between worlds, where ancient Neanderthals and early modern humans might have crossed paths, traded, or even shared life itself. Decades later, the story of Shanidar grew even richer. Between 2018 and 2020, archaeologists from the University of Cambridge returned to the cave with new tools and new questions. Deep in the same sediments, they uncovered another skeleton, this one known as Shanidar Z, found beside a cluster of fossilized pollen grains. The discovery reignited one of archaeology's oldest debates, the so-called flower burial. Were these flowers placed there by chance, carried by the wind and animals? Or had Neanderthals laid them with purpose, as part of a burial ritual, a farewell to one of their own? The evidence suggested intention. If true, it meant that these ancient people were capable not only of empathy, but of ceremony, of honoring life and mourning death. Inside Shanidar, the air is cold and still. When you imagine that quiet chamber lit only by the flicker of a torch, you can almost see them, a small band of Neanderthals, kneeling by their fallen companion, placing his body gently into the earth. This is why Shanidar has become more than just a site of bones and rocks. It is a window into the first stirrings of humanity's heart, a place where survival and compassion intertwined. In the darkness of that cave, there were not only bones. There was love, there was loss, and there was the unmistakable trace of a thinking, feeling mind. If the first chapter of the Shanidar story is written in dirt and stone, the second is written in bone, the delicate architecture of a face that blurs the lines between species. After its discovery, Shanidar 5 was studied alongside dozens of other ancient skulls, Sutia from Israel Arago, 21 from France, and School from the Levant. Each of these fossils carried pieces of the human story, separated by time but connected through shape. Scientists wanted to know where exactly does Shanidar 5 belong on that family tree. To find out, they turned to a field called geometric morphometrics, a way of capturing three-dimensional form through hundreds of precise measurements. Researchers placed 291 digital landmarks across the skull, along the brow ridge, the curve of the cheekbone, the slope of the forehead. Each point was a coordinate in a vast map of faces stretching across 500,000 years of evolution. When the data was plotted, the results were startling. Shanidar 5 did not cluster with classic Neanderthals. Its facial form fell inside the range of modern human variation. It was quite literally a face caught in between. Imagine each fossil as a shimmering dot on a cosmic chart of human ancestry. Neanderthals occupy one constellation, modern humans another. And right there in the empty space between them glows the point of Shanidar 5, a bridge between two stars, a crossroads in evolution. Scientists compared the outlines and angles of the skull to those of Sutia, Arago, and School. A 2012 study by Karen Friedlein and colleagues in the Journal of Human Evolution revealed something extraordinary. All four fossils shared what they called an ancestral facial pattern, a shape likely inherited from a common population long before Neanderthals and modern humans went their separate ways. The more they looked, the more the boundaries blurred. The frontal bone, the forehead of Shanidar 5, was unusually flat for a Neanderthal, yet not artificially altered as some had once thought. The cheekbones projected less than those of European Neanderthals, but more than in early modern humans. Even the brow ridges, though prominent, curved with a subtler rhythm. It was as if this face had borrowed features from both lineages and blended them into something entirely its own. And here lies the paradox. Morphology, the shape of bones, has always been the scientist's language of ancestry. But in the case of Shanidar 5, that language begins to stutter. Statistical analyses, including principal component, plots those maps of shape space, often placed Shanidar closer to Homo sapiens than to the Neanderthals beside it. Yet in other tests, the algorithms pulled it backward toward Homo erectus or Homo heidelbergensis. The borders between categories seemed to dissolve. Even the experts disagreed. Was this simply a regional variation, a Levantine Neanderthal with slightly modern proportions, or was it evidence of something more profound, a population in transition where genes and traits flowed between two human worlds? In that uncertainty lies the beauty of Shanidar 5. Its face is not a label, but a story, a record of contact, of movement, of the deep continuity that links every generation of humanity. When we look at those bones, we are not staring into the eyes of the other. We are seeing a reflection of ourselves refracted through the ancient light of time. Like a star chart scattered with points of connection, Shanidar 5 hangs between the constellations of Neanderthal and modern man, proof that evolution was never a straight line, but a field of possibilities shimmering in the dark. If the bones of Shanidar 5 tell us that species once blurred, then the world around him shows us how those boundaries began to fade. Across the land, stretching from France to the Levant, fragments of ancient lives whisper the same message that humanity's story was never divided by walls, but by rivers of connection flowing across time. Long before Shanidar's burial, another skull lay beneath the soils of southern France. Arago, 21, a fossil of Homo heidelbergensis, nearly 450,000 years old. Its heavy brow and broad face reflected an early design of humanity, strong and primitive, yet already shaping toward what would come later. Thousands of miles away in what is now Israel, another fossil called Zutia bridged the same line. Dated between 500,000 and 200,000 years ago, Zutia occupied the narrow corridor between Africa and Eurasia, the very highway along which our ancestors and their cousins would one day meet. Then came school, also from Israel, roughly 80 to 100,000 years old. These were early Homo sapiens, still wearing the ancient traits of their lineage: strong brow ridges, a projecting face yet unmistakably modern in their grace. When the faces of Arago, Zutia, School and Shanidar are compared, they form not four isolated points, but a single evolutionary arc, a chain that stretches unbroken across continents. This is what scientists now call the Levantine Corridor, the meeting place of worlds. It was not merely a geographic bridge. It was a living boundary where climate shifts, migrations, and small bands of explorers intertwined their stories. For hundreds of thousands of years, the Levant was less a border and more a dialogue, a zone where genes, ideas, and tools moved like tides. Genetics would later confirm what the bones had hinted all along. Every person alive today, outside of Africa, carries between 1% and 4% of Neanderthal DNA, a small but undeniable signature of shared history. This genetic imprint dates to roughly 50 to 45,000 years ago, aligning perfectly with the time when modern humans moved north into regions like Shanidar. The interbreeding did not happen once and vanish. It likely occurred in multiple waves, a quiet exchange that stitched our species together. Even people in Africa today carry traces of Neanderthal ancestry, brought back by later migrations, a genetic echo travelling in reverse. Shanidar 5's DNA has not yet been sequenced. The bones are too fragile, the samples too degraded. Yet his facial shape lying comfortably within modern human variation makes the idea of genetic mixing more than plausible, it makes it almost inevitable. But genes were not the only things that flowed through this contact zone. The ground itself preserves the tools of two kinds of hands. In the layers surrounding Shanidar, archaeologists found the chipped flint blades and scrapers of the Mousterian tradition, the hallmark of Neanderthals. Nearby, in those same layers, appeared the slender blades of Emeran and initial Upper Paleolithic industries, the signature of early modern humans. Above them lay the early Achmarian and Levantine Aurignacian toolkits, artifacts of the New World taking shape. Picture this: two stone knives lying side by side in the dust, one thick and heavy-shaped by a Neanderthal craftsman, the other fine and sharp made by a human, newly arrived from Africa. They never met these two toolmakers, yet their creations rested together in the same earth, as if waiting for the day we would find them and understand. These artifacts are not just tools, they are dialogue. They tell of an age when cultural and biological exchange blurred species lines. Technology evolved not in isolation, but in conversation. The Levant, rich in flint and life, became the classroom of humanity, where two lineages shared ideas as naturally as they might have shared genes. The story widens further west to Italy's Guattari Cave, where fossils of late Neanderthals reveal faces uncannily similar to Shanidar's. The resemblance is not coincidence. It may reflect a west-to-east genetic flow, a wave of contact that rippled across Ice Age Europe and into Mesopotamia. In these final millennia, before the Neanderthals disappeared, their world was not collapsing, it was merging. Populations moved, climates shifted, and the frontiers of identity blurred like footprints in melting snow. To stand in Shanidar Cave today is to feel that merging in your bones. The air is cold, the echoes deep. You can almost hear the rhythm of two heartbeats, Neanderthal and modern human beating side by side beneath the same stone roof. One species did not simply replace the other. Instead, there was overlap, exchange, and perhaps even love. Science once sought clear boundaries, to name one form as modern, another as archaic. But Shanidar 5 defies those lines. He belongs to neither category and to both. His bones whisper that evolution is not a ladder, but a tapestry woven from countless crossings. When you trace the threads from Arago to Zutia, from School to Shanidar, from Guattari to every one of us, you begin to see the larger pattern. The faces change, the genes drift, but the essence remains connection. And maybe that is the greatest truth hidden in the dust of the Levant. There are no absolute borders in evolution, only meeting points, places where one kind of human looked into the eyes of another and for the first time recognized something familiar. In those moments, the world grew smaller and humanity in all its forms took a shared breath under the same ancient sky. In the end, the story of Shanidar 5 is not about one skull or one species. It is about what happens when boundaries blur, when the lines we draw between them and us begin to fade into the dust of time. Shanidar 5 was neither fully Neanderthal nor fully human in the modern sense. He stood at a crossroads where two great rivers of evolution met and mingled. In his bones, we see evidence of an ancient mosaic pieces of heritage, shaped by countless encounters woven together into something entirely new. He is not a missing link. He is a living bridge, a reminder that the path from past to present was never straight, but braided, intertwined. Science once tried to separate us neatly, Neanderthal on one side, Homo sapiens on the other, but Shanidar 5 refuses that simplicity. His face tells a deeper truth that evolution is not division, but connection. The differences between species, like the differences between people, are often smaller than we imagine. He teaches us that humanity was not born in isolation. It emerged through contact, through the sharing of land, of struggle, of compassion. When his ancient wound healed under the care of others, when his people buried their dead with flowers, they were already expressing something deeply human: empathy. That same empathy runs through us today. It lives in the way we remember, in the way we build, in the way we reach across differences to find understanding. The story of Shanidar reminds us that connection, not separation, is the true inheritance of our species. Maybe Shanidar 5 never imagined that his face would one day tell the story of hundreds of thousands of years of evolution. Yet, from that smooth brow and gentle cheek, science has drawn one of its most powerful lessons: the unity of humankind. There is no longer a clear border between them and us, only a single flowing current that carries every ancestor, every child, every heartbeat of the human journey. When we look into the reconstructed face of Shanidar 5, we see not a stranger, but a reflection, a window into the shared past that still shapes who we are. His story reminds us that even in a world divided by labels and lines, the truth of our origin is collective. We were never meant to stand apart. So as the torchlight fades in the cave of Shanidar, and the wind carries its quiet song through the mountains of Kurdistan, we are left with one simple thought: that within every human being lies the echo of others, Neanderthal sapiens, ancestor kin. And perhaps that is the most human thing of all. If you believe that the story of evolution is still being written, then keep following the trail, because every discovery, every fossil, every face unearthed from the past is another mirror held up to us, another reminder that the search for who we were is really the search for who we are.